All very welcome. While we're waiting for the others, you might like to have a look at the QR code on the screen or go to slido.com, hashtag LM200123. Normal things, there's a survey on there which we'd like you to undertake. So maybe in the 2 or 3 minutes we're waiting for the others to arrive, you'd like to get going on that. I'll do an official introduction at midday, but as I say, for the time being, please just scan that QR code or go to slido.com and start filling in the survey. That would be super. Thank you very much. Coming in thick and fast, folks. It's going to be a good start to the year. I can feel it.
I hope so. Oh. Is that the David Thomas?
We'll let David Thomas answer that in the chat box. I'm sure he is the David Thomas. From David Thomas's point of view.
Yes.
A hand went up and then it disappeared when you asked, so I think it probably is.
So David is a friend of many years.
Okay, so, yeah, we've got a yes now in the box, Liz. Can you see the chat box, Liz?
I can when I'm not looking at who's coming in and being curious about who's there. So
yeah, if you go to the chat, yes, it is the David Thomas. So there you go. At least one friend in the audience. That's always a help.
Well, very important, because David Thomas is a former specialist inspector with the HSE and runs the Temporary Works Forum, and was a colleague of mine at Atkins, so and blames me for a career in health and safety.
I'm sure you've been blamed for a lot worse than that, Liz.
There is the truth in that, Andrew.
Well, it's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. We'll just leave it another 60 seconds or so, Liz, if you don't mind. Because normally people skate in, don't they, from one meeting to the next. Hard to believe that it's nearly 3 years ago, Howard, we started these back in March 2020. So we've been doing these now for nearly 3 years. It's remarkable, really.
I know, time flies. That's the unfortunate thing, isn't it?
When you're having a good time, I know. Yes, I have quite a packed week next week. I've got 2 funerals to attend.
Oh,
probably a sign of my age. I became an old age pensioner on Christmas Eve, so that's what I've got to look forward to in my forward planning.
Free bus pass.
Yeah, I haven't had that yet.
Well, you have to apply for that.
You have to apply for it. Oh, yes.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to be travelling on buses, to be honest. That isn't sort of on my bucket list.
They're very useful. They're very useful for sporting occasions and things like that.
No, you haven't convinced me. Look, it's a minute past. I think it's probably enough of the chit chat. So a very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this very cold, brisk but bright Friday afternoon. This is our first webinar of 2023. I'm Andrew Carpenter. I'm Chief Executive of both Constructing Excellence in the Midlands and the Structural Timber Association. And in terms of hosting these events, I'm joined by my CE family, you can see on the screen, and also by CIOB in the Southwest. I'm delighted that a good friend of mine, Liz Bennett, has agreed to be our first speaker of 2023. We've been trying to get Liz along to do this for some time because it's such an important topic. So we're going to be today revisiting design risk management and looking forward to what Liz has to say on that in a moment. But before we do hand over to Liz, another friend of mine, Howard Betts, we've just been discussing, we've been presenting these now for nearly 3 years from Leaders Meets, is just going to take us through the house rules, just in case you've forgotten them since the back end of last year, and also take us through a little survey. So I'm going to mute myself. Howard, it's over to you.
Thank you, Andrew, and welcome to everyone, and a belated Happy New Year to you. It seems a long time ago, but let's look at how we're going to use Slido today. For those of you unfamiliar, you can get into Slido one of two ways. If you have a QR reader on your phone, you can use the QR reader that's shown. If not, you can go to slido.com and you can type in today's code, which is hashtag leadersmeets 200123, which is today's date. We're going to be using it in two ways. Firstly, we're going to be using a poll that I'll run through with you in a moment. And secondly, if you have any questions for Liz, and I'm sure you will, I wonder whether you could pop them into Slido. Now, when you pop them in there, they will go in, and if you think that is a good question, you can say, oh, I like that question, and that question will pop up to the top of the rankings to be asked to Liz. So please use, if you can remember, Slido rather than the chat, as we keep the questions all in the same place. Okay, let's move on to the poll. Abraham, if we can show it, please. For regular attenders, 11 have already put it in, but please, if you can go now to Slido, we're going to be giving the answers or the results, depends which words you like, to this after Liz's presentation. So if you don't complete it now as we run through it, you can complete it during the next 20 minutes or so. So the first question, simple. Are you a designer? Yes or no? Second question, please. Do you think CDM 2015 is a good set of regulations in general? Again, just a simple yes or no. The third question, please, Abraham. Do you think it is fair designers are held responsible for their designs? Again, a simple yes or no. Question 4. Do you use PxS matrices at work as part of design risk management? Yes or no? And for the last question, please, do you think PxS matrices are helpful for design risk assessment? Again, a yes or no. So I'm 23, so it'd be interesting if we can get up to sort of half of the room, so 30 odd. So please keep answering those. I'm now going to hand back to Andrew, who's introduced Liz, and thank you for your participation in the poll.
Howard. As I said earlier, Liz and I go back quite a few years in constructing excellence circles, probably right back almost to Egan, I think, Liz, don't we? So it must be 25 years. CE Midlands have identified some key priorities for 2023, and you won't be surprised to know that a lot of that is around safety, particularly with the Building Safety Act just released late last year. So really pleased, Liz, that you can join us today to give of your knowledge and expertise in this critical area. Format will be a presentation from Liz, then we'll go to the results of the survey, go through those, Liz and I, together before we open it up to you all. So on Slido, as Howard's already said, there is an opportunity for questions. As Liz speaks, please do post your questions in Slido, and I will pass those and go through them with Liz afterwards. Anyway, enough from me. I'm going to shut my camera down, Liz, turn the mic off, you'll be pleased to know, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, both of you, and thank you very much for the warm welcome. Hello, everybody. So what I'm going to do is use part of a training course that I run very frequently. It's an APS accredited course that you can purchase through Synergy Training of Inverness. But it's also at the very heart of what I would like to change about how industry is behaving. It's an extraordinary industry that we work in. It's creative and passionate and very, very good at problem solving. And I think we need to flip from being fearful of regulation and fearful of the constraints upon us and use them as a springboard for excellence and improved productivity. So what I'm going to be doing is picking apart probability times severity matrices and then giving them back to you, right? So don't panic, don't switch off. You'll need to stay to the end and be assured that BP uses probability times severity risk matrices, even though Liz doesn't like them. So your choice is Liz or BP, I suppose. Okay, now I'm hoping that you can see my screen. Interesting. I might need some technical help here because this is not happening. What can I need Howard or somebody to tell me what you can see.
Yeah, Liz, we can see your slides.
You can see
no
just one slide. Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrew, for that.
Yep.
My first webinar with Leaders Meets, as Andrew said, so sorry about that. Right, just to introduce myself, in terms of ability to do this, I'm the ICE subject matter lead on CDM, and I'm a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers. I do training for them, but as I say, most of my training is through Synergy training. And I've also just been asked to take on the Constructing Excellence Southwest Building Safety Group. It's really worth looking at the ongoing piece of work that that community has done in relation to clients. We're going to be taking on providing rolling advice and support around the Building Safety Act, because I think there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding around that. So as we head into design, I thought it would be useful to start with the fact that design and designers occur all over the project team. So we can have the CDM client, the principal designer and the principal contractor, and each and every one of those top table 3 can have designers and deciders in their team. And if you think about it, it's often a decision to go for one option or another option that is the fundamental design choice. And so I find it more helpful to say design and decide, designers and deciders, specifiers, for instance, right? So I want to look at Regulation 9 duties of designers. So this is CDM Regulation 9, and it splits into 3 kinds of activities that designers have responsibility for. And the first one is the client relationship. Designers need to be satisfied that clients are aware of the client's duties. I think that this is a call to action for designers as well, to have a clearer understanding of their client's expectation of what the designers will do. Now, that's not a statutory duty. The statutory duty is to make sure your client is aware, in case you've got a client who's only doing a one-off project or not. So it can be a very difficult challenge when clients have never heard of CDM, or if you're working in infrastructure, it's likely that your client is fully aware and has got very complex and advanced arrangements in place. Then we've got a duty to do design. Oh, interesting.
Sorry to interrupt, Liz. Some cannot see the slides. Maybe you can try sharing again.
I can try sharing again. Something is preventing us sharing. I think what you're seeing now is my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen now. I hope everyone else can.
Yeah, it's good from here. Good from here.
And are you seeing just one slide? You're not seeing presenter's slide?
No, I can see the notes, so you need to swap it on the top display settings.
Display settings.
Swap, yeah.
That's
Right.
it. That's it. Yeah, good.
Fabulous. Thank you for that clarification. Right, so doing design, and if you look at Regulation 9, you'll find that all of paragraph 9.2 and then paragraph 9.3a are about the process of doing design. And then when we go on to the rest of Regulation 9, we find 9.3b and 9.3c and all of paragraph 4, that should say Regulation 9.4, sorry, are about providing information for others about the design. I loved this. This came from an architect. Show all your good work. Be proud. So I want to go on now to design risk assessment and to think about how we can comply with our work. And I want to start with a quote from Judith Hackett when she was asked how unlikely an accident had to be before the questioner could stop worrying about ending up in court. And it's on the screen, but I think it's worth reading. Successful risk management is not about ticking boxes or calculating numbers. And it's not about doing things to avoid sanctions. The primary goal is not to avoid a fine or a criminal record, but to stop people being made unwell or being hurt or killed by their work. Interestingly, that's the best way to stop being prosecuted or threatened with prosecution. Don't have accidents. Judith goes on to say, managing risk means managing people, and every one of them is different. That's not easy to factor into the numerical system-driven approach to risk management. So we're now going to dive into probability times severity matrices, and I want to look at some school maths. Now I'm qualified to teach maths to A level, so we're all right here. We feel confident and comfortable. And I want to look at probability, which is secondary school maths. The value of probability when something is impossible is 0. There's no chance, right? The probability of throwing a 7 with a single throw of an unbiased dice is 0. What is the value of probability when something is absolutely certain? Now, it's quite interesting because most people will answer to that, it's 100. But what they mean by that is 100%. And 100% means 100 divided by 100. It means 100 times out of every 100 times you try something. And we can cancel that down to 1. Mathematically, probability can only have values between 0 and 1 inclusive. This is a bit of a problem for our risk assessment matrix, because we like to assign probability values of 1, 2, 3, and 4, for instance, against severity values. All right, we need to do a bit of a workaround to make this secondary school maths work. Maybe what we're saying isn't 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe what we're saying is 0 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 5 out of 5. 0 out of 5 is 0. There is no chance. We've eliminated the risk. We've achieved ultimate success in our designer's duty. So we don't need to worry about it anymore. Or 5 out of 5, it's absolutely certain. The shard will be extraordinarily high. Deal with it. And what we're looking at is the space in the middle to give us some indication of how important things might be, how likely they are to occur. Now, secondary school maths teacher Liz is sort of reasonably grudgingly confident, happy with your workaround now, our workaround. And also accepts that because every box is divided by 5, to get a relationship between them, we could multiply every box by 5 and have a proportion. And so we're back at this. Now I have a problem with primary school arithmetic. Is 2 twice 1? And just in case you've forgotten any primary school arithmetic, I will remind you that the answer to that question is yes, 2 is twice 1. And so the whole of the second column is twice as likely as the first column, if indeed those columns are probability. Now that's not usually what we mean. We might mean here on this 4x4 table, very low probability, quite low, quite high, and very high. And we might define the limits of those statements. But part of the problem is, when we've worked out our risk rating, and I've taken the example of 2x2 and 3x3, we would then say with confident recall of our primary school maths that the risk rating of 9 is more than twice the risk rating of 4. It's way worse. Yeah. Now I agree that 9 is more than twice 4. But what if we were looking at probability and severity either side of the line between them? There could be minimal difference between the risks in those two boxes. I'm going to make this worse before I make it better. I'm going to go on now to a typical simplified design risk assessment matrix. We know, or some of us know, and I'm telling you, HSE is very interested in health in construction. And if you're interested in that, please get in touch, because we're doing a lot of work in that area. The 3 categories they're looking at are lung health, especially including asbestos and silica, musculoskeletal health, including vibration and arm vibration, and mental health. And we have a newish charity, especially for the construction industry, Mates in Mind. So using the fact that we might want to design out the use of manual handling of blocks, I've taken that as an example. So what we do is we make up a number for probability and we make up another number for severity. I say we make up because we have no idea of the data around when manual handling does not cause a problem. Twice a week, I pay somebody to encourage me to lift heavy weights in very careful ways to increase the bone density of my ancient skeleton. Manual handling done correctly can be a health benefit. But we recognise that there are a large number of manual handling injuries, and therefore we judge it to be a bad thing across our industry. I'm not going to argue with that. But how bad and how likely we make up. And then we say, right, design action is to use off-site construction, modern methods of construction. And we make up 2 completely unrelated probability and severity numbers to give us our residual risk rating. Now, fortuitously, happily, the residual risk rating is considerably less than the original risk rating was. So we feel confident that we've done what we were asked to do by CDM Regulation 9. And we say that the action is to use off-site. There's a huge amount wrong with this for me, aside from the fact that the numbers are made up. For a start, any of us could have said off-site construction reduces manual handling without the need for this tortuous and tedious table. For another thing, off-site construction as a decision for a project is a very early decision and not likely to be one that's decided when you're looking at dealing with manual handling problems in the industry. But the main issue I have with this, I think, is the fact that it's too narrow. It does not tell us that choosing off-site is introducing new and different problems to do with transport and to do with mechanical handling on the site. And it makes us feel that we've done what we needed to do, and we haven't. We need to keep going on. So let's just park that, and don't forget I'm going to give it back to you, so don't panic. And let me tell you John's story. Sorry. Now, John was a young graduate engineer. This wasn't John's project. This is a photo I pinched off the internet, actually. It's just, but he was working on an environmental project. Yeah? And he was doing an environmental risk assessment for the project in terms of, would the project have an impact on the environment, on the watercourse and surrounding natural history and so on and so on. And he was very keen and very enthusiastic. And this is a long time ago, so his report was in hard copy and a couple of floppy disks too, I suspect. And he sent it off to the Environment Agency. So top tier client here, very, very proud to be doing this. And because he was keen and enthusiastic and cared about the environment, quite a lot of his assessments were in the red zone. The Environment Agency sent his report straight back. We do not allow red zone working. Now I'd love to see your faces, because I'm going to ask you, what did John do next? And when I ask people on courses this question, most of them give a wry grin and say he changed the numbers. He did. He changed the numbers, and that's all he did. So there was no difference to the outcomes on site, but his report now had no red zone working and was accepted in full. Now, the problem with that is it's a very strong indicator of the fact that the numbers are highly susceptible to change. Right? They are made up numbers that we manipulate to suit our purpose. Here's a scary thought. Years and years ago, I was talking to somebody who does risk assessment for, who was doing risk assessment for the rail industry. And he was an expert. And he said, Liz, you tell me what answer you want, and I can use maths that is too complicated for people either to understand or to be bothered to interrogate properly. Now, that's a scary thought. You don't need to worry about travelling on the rail. He doesn't work there anymore. He works in nuclear now, she said wryly. Okay, let's see what BP said about my little build-up to why I don't like design risk assessments. They said, forget about the arithmetic. So long as you are sure and confident and everybody understands the boundaries, that probability scale isn't a pure arithmetic probability. It's an indicative, non-linear probability scale. And we in BP understand that. What he went on to say was that there were two things that caused him serious concern when I introduced John. Two things that gave him serious concern. The first was John was a graduate. He didn't have the skills, knowledge, and critically experience to do the job properly. And the second concern was that John was doing this on his own. In BP, they used probability times severity risk matrices following an extensive exercise with subject matter experts sharing their expertise in technical matters in a space together, and they use the probability times severity matrices to give a shortcut communication to others who have neither the time nor the capability to understand the nuances, and to say, we have serious concerns that at our level in the organisation, we will not be able to manage and mitigate the risks effectively. I thought I'd reference some HSE research that I did with Alan Gilbertson some years ago. And we were asked by the HSE to look at project decisions that had been taken early on for commercial reasons, but had coincidentally had health and safety benefits. So I've chosen these because they show that health and safety risk management and the cost equations associated therewith are intricately and absolutely wound in to the whole productivity basis of project delivery. So Newport Southern Distributor Road. There was additional site investigation and additional design management recommended by the consultant. They could identify that this would give substantially more benefit than the cost. Sorting uncertainties out at the earliest stage of projects is always going to be helpful in any key performance indicator that you wish to choose that feed into the probability matrix. Another well-known example, Heathrow Terminal 5 during construction. Almost impossible to achieve approval and actually any kind of sense of work without the consolidation centre. Setup costs 20 million, running costs 20 million. Reduction in waste, identified just in these two categories, 120 million, a lot more. If you were to look at the GIRI website, the Get It Right website, Get It Right initiative, which I strongly commend to you, you will see that their recent research shows that the need for rework is one of our biggest costs in industry and supports the view that it's typically in excess of £20 billion per annum. £20 billion. What couldn't society do with that? Now, Colchester Garrison, my third and final example in this space. It was identified at strategic, very, very early front end that there would be unlikely to be sufficient skilled craftspeople to deliver the project with certainty. And therefore the decision was taken to go for off-site. Uncertainty radically reduced. It's just from the nature of the location of Colchester. So there's a group of people who work in Colchester, they've got their typical workload, and then there are other people around Colchester who may jump in their vans, jump on the train and go to London. Yeah, absolutely fine and super, but it meant that there wasn't the resource in the surrounding area for this project. So project risk. So what can we do about it? And I'm going to give you 3 references that are going to be helpful, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to share some pages from the first 2 and suggest an alternative way of achieving what we're asked to do as designers, which is to eliminate if we can, reduce if we can't eliminate, and control through further design. Not control by handing it on to the principal contractor to do, but control through further design. And if you don't recall that, just have a look at Regulation 9. So Syria C755 was funded essentially by the DTI when HSE was part of the Department for Trade and Industry, which no longer exists. It is used today by HSE, specifically in their Lloyd's Register Foundation funded work at Manchester University. And I'll talk about that more when I can show you what it looks like. There's also a helpful book specifically for architects by Paul Bussey, a guide for CDM 2015, a guide for architects and designers, and then a website which is very helpful, again, particularly for designers and that kind of designer, which you can go in and look in their resources for that. Right, so just in summary to what designers are being asked. They're asked before they accept a commission to have the right capability. And it's technical design capability that's going to be the most important. I'd like to give as an example Professor John Burland, who's a chap who stopped the Leaning Tower of Pisa from falling over. I strongly doubt, and I keep forgetting to ask him, whether he used a probability times severity matrix as his go-to, or whether he actually asked for information about the ground and the water in the ground and the types of ground and the loading and so on and so on and so on. It's about your technical design capability in the sector in which you work. Don't forget as well Regulation 8 behaviours. Regulation 8 is the core of CDM. It's about building the team and how everybody, including the client, on the team must behave. Right? Everybody must cooperate. Everybody must report concerns about potential harm. And I'm rephrasing the legal text. You can look it up for yourselves. And everybody must provide comprehensive and timely information. How do we measure up to that? So in that background, our duties are to eliminate, reduce, and control through further design the problems that those coming after us are going to have to inherit as they construct, as they maintain, as they alter, as they decommission, and so on. And we are required to inform those who need the right kind of information in ways that are comprehensible and timely. My strong message is be proud to be a great designer. Be proud of your technical knowledge. Just look at what we do across our sector. It's extraordinary. And I think that my lessons I learnt as head of health and safety for LOCOG, the London 2012 Olympics, was we're in this together as a project team, and we want to get to the end of the project and be able to look back with satisfaction and pride. I designed that. That's my project, and I'm proud to let you know. And a question to ask yourselves is, what would you do differently if CDM didn't exist? I thought I'd give the last word to one of my co-directors, Richard Voke. Now, Richard used to be an HSE inspector in the Major Hazards Unit, and he's now a defence lawyer based in Bristol. He said, to stay out of court, don't harm people, because you know how to do your job. you have the skills, knowledge and experience, and you can do your job properly. Know what your duties are. In my experience, a lot of people have made a lot of assumptions about what CDM 2015 tells them to do, and they're just going with the flow. And CDM 2015 is worth a second look. Know what your duties are. Perform your duties. We don't want workarounds. If you don't like what you're being asked to do, then find out why you're being asked to do it. There'll be some background reason somewhere. Have systems in place to help you. And that's what good systems should be there for, to help you to perform the duties that you know you have to achieve success with the technical decisions that you need to make in your role. And finally, Richard said, talk about what you do. Tell other people on your project team how proud you are of the systems you have and the understanding and culture across your team. And encourage them to look at these 5 bullets as well. Right, that's the end of this presentation, and you've got our URL there, but I want to drop out of this and show you those documents that I mentioned. So I'm hoping that this is going to work. I'm going to show you Syria C755. Now, I might need Andrew to tell me whether you can see.
We can see it, but we're also getting a lot of background information. Your last slide is still showing.
Okay,
so we're just on the slide now. If you close the slides down,
it might go away.
And then go to what you wanted now, I would suggest. That's it. Yep.
Drag it back.
Just need to enlarge it, Liz, really.
Enlarge it. We can do this. Excellent. Is that comfortable for everybody?
Oh, yes.
There we go. Right. Syria C755 is by designers for designers. The lead on it was Arup, and it had hundreds of people, regulators, designers, health and safety professionals contributing to the content. It's worth a look. It's divided into 5 sections, A to E, and then each section is subdivided into numbered parts. So Syria has very kindly sent me 3 of the guides from Group B, which is Group B is all about excavations and foundations. So we have this instruction to read the guidance. The introductory guidance to Syria is fantastic. The scope of this guide, the exclusions from this guide, up to 6-line drawings of the major hazards and risks relating to this. And then my favorite page, what I would suggest is a generic risk list for foundations that is very, very open and asks whether you need to think about it for your project. It gives you prompts in terms of how to think about it. Then down below that, at concept, scheme and detailed design stage, what is actually a generic set of solutions to some of those problems. Absolutely blissful. What wouldn't you want to use about this? Now, if you look at this, these are design choices, design decisions, and health and safety is not mentioned. So if we look at this first bullet, collapse of earthworks onto people, Trial pitting, for instance, the subject of the first corporate manslaughter case in the UK under the relatively new Corporate Manslaughter Act. Collapse of earthworks is a deadly thing, and therefore, if we can design out the potential for collapse of earthworks, we're doing a good thing as a designer. So can we batter back the slopes? So think about it in those terms, and it's been divided into concept stage, decision, scheme, and detail. The third page is 2 worked examples. So taking here flooding. Look, this book was produced when CDM first came in, and it's asking us to avoid, reduce, control through further design. I'm hoping that you understand we're still being asked to do this, and we're still not understanding that. To avoid a building flooding, could we raise the level? Oh, way too expensive. Could we change the foundation design from pads to piles so when it floods we don't get underscoring and differential settlement? Oh, it's still too expensive. It's only a shed. Okay, let's manage the floodwater. Ditto unstable ground. Or another example where we're working through a complex scenario at the different stages. Neighbouring buildings, we know straight away we're going to need fully engineered retaining walls for the project. So we can price that in straight away and we can start to plan for it. Then on page 4, other references. There are a lot here within this book because it's such a generic issue, and then primary and secondary ones from outside, and we get on to the next topic. Right, just because time is of the essence here, I can see. What I would suggest you do is get hold of Syria 755, and those of you who've got access to Technical Index or something like that, you'll already have it available, otherwise it's £80 from Syria, and go into some of those guides in subject areas you know about and stress test them. If it's helpful, use it. If it's not helpful, set it to one side. But if it's helpful, consider honing the guides to your particular type of work in your particular sector, and develop your sets of what typically are hazards and risks and what typically are good design solutions to those hazards and risks. And then the other one is from Paul Bussey's book, and it's about information sharing. And of course, my slide doesn't want to open. Right. I'm hoping that you can see North Hertfordshire College.
Yes, we can.
Good,
yes.
Good. Thank you, Andrew. I'm loving your reassurance at every stage. So we've got an arched roof here, which the client was very excited to say they wanted. They wanted different levels and they wanted lots of light. This is the architect saying, we've listened to you and we think this is what you want. And so this drawing was prepared anyway, regardless of CDM. Are we on the right track, Mr. Client? But look what Paul has done here. With 4 little text boxes, he's added to an existing drawing to facilitate a conversation about the cost implications of particular choices to confirm or otherwise whether the client wants to proceed. Maintenance of the underside of this roof will be difficult and therefore expensive because of the change in level. Ditto high-level window cleaning and maintenance. Bridge construction will happen after the building's watertight, so this slender column will be in place and this fragile wall will be in place. It's a difficult series of lifts, so it'll be expensive. Dear client, do you wish to proceed? Now, I'd like to suggest that if you were a client, you would much rather be faced with a drawing like that than a probability times severity risk matrix. Not got access to super duper architect's drawings, What about a sketch? This is explaining that cladding at the first build is usually installed from inside of the building, but once the raised floors in situ and the internal walls and partitions and so on, everything's going to happen from outside. What is the appetite the client has for capital costs versus operational costs? What are their plans for the ground next to this building? Is it soft landscape, ponds, or even worst of all, another building? Because that's going to impact on the decisions that designers can make. Now, I think that those sorts of ideas are going to be infinitely more powerful for designers in terms of doing design and designing out at source problems. And I'm going to stop now so that you've got a chance, a short chance to come back at me.
Thank you, Liz. So much there to discuss and debate. Folks, if you've got any questions for Liz, pop them onto Slido, would you please, so I can ask Liz in a few moments. But for now, Abraham, may we have the survey results up? We'll just take Liz through those and get her views and opinions. Right, here we go with the first one. Hopefully, yes. Feedback survey. No, we want the original survey. Yes. Are you a designer? So what do we have for this then, please? So there you go, Liz. Sort of 50-50 almost, half and half.
Yeah, that's good.
So plenty then. What's number 2 then, please? Do you think CDM 2015 is a good set of regulations? So overwhelmingly, yes. Do you share those views, Liz?
I do, yes. I think it's a project management tool and framework. And I think it just gives us common touch points across all industry. So we've got clarity around the conversations we need to have. What does the designer need to do? What does the principal designer need to do? Rather than being rather vague about what we need to discuss.
Okay, let's go to question 3 then, please, Abraham.
Oh.
Do you think it's fair designers are held responsible? Everyone says yes. I'm assuming you agree with that, Liz.
Yes, they do. Yes,
yeah.
But it's encouraging there, Ziki.
Good. Okay, let's go to question 4. So that's a sort of a bit of a split there. Does that surprise you?
No, and the question's too simple as well, because in terms of design risk management, I would agree that they're useful in communicating and they may be useful in assessing one option against another, but they don't help very much, in my view, with the process of doing design. So the question is too simplistic, but I'm encouraged that a lot of people would rather do something different. And if you want to join the march to do something different and better, please get in touch.
Okay, thank you. And the final question, I believe. Do we think it's helpful? We've got 2/3 saying yes to that.
So that's quite interesting.
What you mean comparing 4 with 5?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Slido. I don't think we got any. Have we got any questions, Abraham? I can't see any on my phone.
No, I don't think so. I cannot see any, sorry. And we have one in the chat though. Okay,
let's go to the chat box then, shall we? Naughty people putting questions in the chat box and not on. So David, your friend, has asked a question on the chat box, Liz. Would you like to take that? He's saying he can't get into Slido. Oh, that's strange.
So is that going on to say?
Yeah, the DRA debate has been going on for 20+ years. Some have attempted to create a debate within the industry. Why is industry not engaged in driving improvement? Is it a lack of enforcement HSC against designer? Is it Reg 9 enforceable anything but the simplest case studies? Have the main professional institutions done enough? What do you think?
So no, I don't think they have. I don't think they've done enough yet. I think what's happened is that when CDM came in, it was seen as a health and safety set of regulations. And although it's made under the Health and Safety at Work Act, if you look at the title of it, it's for the construction sector, and what it's covering is in the brackets, design and management. And talking to heads of and directors of health and safety from major companies, they say these regulations are for technical professional staff, not for health and safety people. They're about designing and managing and dealing with things in that way. So, but I'm very much hoping to get the Institution of Civil Engineers engaged with this, David, and I'd probably be calling on your assistance with that. And certainly others are looking at that in REBA and CIOB and everything. So I think now we're beginning finally as an industry to realise what we could and therefore should do to be more collaborative, which is another thing that CDM requires of us.
Yeah, I mean, would you say, Liz, if we broaden this discussion, I mean, you and I have been at the change agenda for over 2 decades, and I mean, my assessment is any of the change that we're talking about health and safety at the moment, but whether we talk about people development, whether we talk about sustainability, whatever the topic, we only tend to change, one, if it's regulated or legislated, or two, if the client thinks it's a good idea. Would you share that view?
There's another thing that we change. So if you look at the REBA plan of work, that has stood the test of time because it's a project management tool that is linked to commercial payments through contracts, and therefore it is of commercial value and professional assistance to architects.
Okay.
So so there we go. David's suggesting that the severity is also a problem. I would completely agree with that, of course. You know, David and I don't always think the same, but we often do.
You do today, which is really nice for this webinar.
It's really nice. Yes, yes. So David's
Abraham, have we got any questions yet in Slido? I can't see any on my phone.
Yeah, there seems to be an issue with the Q&A. I'm just trying to refresh.
Oh, right. Well, I've somebody's done a test question which has come through.
Oh, that's coming now. That was me.
That was you. I thought it might have been. So
it should be working then for the other side. Yeah,
that's come through, but it's a wee bit late now because it's 5 to 1, which is a shame. But I think, Liz, part of the situation is that you've given such a thorough talk on the topic that probably you haven't left much for question.
I think I have left one thing out, which I think is possibly a good thing to say at the end.
Okay, well, let's do that now then, because we've got a few closing comments to make. So maybe make that point now, Liz, please.
Yeah, the point I would like to say is you must use probability times severity risk matrices if your organization requires you to do so. Otherwise, you're out on a limb, and you're not protected by your organization from the wrath of the law if anything goes wrong. Right? It's there as the organization's approach to good performance. Right? And you also should use them if you find them helpful in any other way, but you don't have to use them to be a great designer.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Liz. Right. Abraham, may we have the feedback survey slide up, please? So earlier on, ladies and gents, we asked you to fill out a survey for this particular presentation. We like to look at continuous improvement for everything we do. So there is a feedback survey. Again, you can reach via slido.com or via the QR code on the screen. Just take a couple of minutes, would you? Not even that of your time to fill that in. It would be helpful for us, and I'm sure Liz would like to see the results as well. So if you could do that, please. The next slide hopefully is going to tell us what the next webinar is. As you know, we're not holding them now on a weekly basis. We're doing it on a monthly basis. This one was put back a week for various reasons. So the next one is actually on the 10th of February. What we're trying to achieve is the second Friday of the month. Now, there can be no doubt that one of the key topics that we're going to be dealing with in 2023 is productivity. I know, sitting on one of the Construction Leadership Council groups, productivity is one of their 3 priorities for 2023. I think we're going to have clients wanting to get a bigger bang for their buck or anything of that nature. So looking at improving productivity, I think, is going to be critical to all of us this year, as we tend to try and get more for less. So we're going to be looking at the art of the impossible. That's what they've called it. Reducing duration of tasks, removing waste, and boosting productivity. So I'm hoping that will be of interest commercially to all of us, and that you'll be back in 3 weeks for that. All it leaves me to do now, Liz, is to thank you so very much for giving of your valuable time to share your considerable knowledge with us this afternoon. So thank you to you, Liz. Also, thank you to the team at Leaders Meets, to Howard and to Abraham for hosting it. And of course, thank you to all our guests here this afternoon. I hope you found the last 60 minutes valuable. I'm sure you did. Howard, do you have a last message to give? I see you've come on screen.
Yes, thanks to everyone. Thank you very much, Liz. Found it really very interesting. Don't know anything about it, so learnt a lot. So many thanks indeed.
Yeah. So I hope you have a lovely afternoon, folks. I'm going to wish you well and see you all in 3 weeks. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Bye to all. Bye to all.
Bye.